I don't know if you remember when we were kids, you had to put the first dollar on the pizza oven. So we were the first $10 million on the pizza oven of the BlackRock Bitcoin Trust, which is going to be converted into the ETF. And so I'm proud of that because
did they need that for new? Oh, you should be proud of that, man.
I mean, I want to help those guys. And by the way, they're helping, they're helping us. They're helping get the industry adopted. You know what I mean?
Of course. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I have today, Friday, October the 27th, right before the ETF. This ETF is going to get approved sooner or later. I made sure I got the Anthony Scaramucci on video. I was trying to do this in person, but he's got a bunch of stuff going on, as do I. But I've got the one and only Anthony Scaramucci, American financier. This is what Bart says about you, Anthony. Author, investor, financier, and podcast host, best known for a quick trip to DC.
I got fired after 11 days from the Trump administration.
Yeah, see, I think that isn't, like, to me, that's you should wear that with a badge of freaking honor. Founder and chairman of Skybridge Capital, global alternative investment firm, and we're going to get into that and figure out what that all means. Went to Tufts, great school, then went to Harvard, did Goldman Sachs on the investment banking side, and has been a free agent since the early 2000s, right, Anthony, with Oscar and now Skybridge.
Oh, it's very nice. I mean, listen, there's been a lot of ups and downs in my career, but the truth of the matter is it's been a great time, and like you, what I love about you is you're the classic entrepreneur. So you're going to ride the ride, it's not the destination for guys like you and me. It's the journey. And if you had said to me when I was growing up, this is how this thing's going to unfold, do you sign up for it? I'm like, I'm in, because it's really been quite a journey.
Yeah, we're gonna do that at the end. I want to talk about at the end, Anthony, the wave of people coming into this particular industry. I know you have committed almost like you're full into the Bitcoin, blockchain, digital asset world, right? You're just pretty full in.
No question.
Yeah. So we're going to get to that at the very end of this, just talking about why so many, and I notice it's a particular personality that's coming into the space early. But the young guys in the Bitcoin community I think you're going to have a wave of guys my age, your age, that are well balanced. They've been through, they've lost hundreds of millions of dollars over 30 or 40 years. And it's not, the only way to learn how never to do that again is to do it once. Right. And that makes a powerful person that can come back from losses. I won't invest in anybody that has never had a loss. They scare the heck out of me, dude.
They do. And I should have scared the heck out of myself before I had that loss, and I'll take you back because I know you're a lifelong trader. I was filled with hubris in 1998, 34-year-old young man. I made a tremendous amount of money in 96 and 97. And so therefore I thought I had it figured out, Gary, and I got destroyed in August of 1998, destroyed in about a 12 trading day period. I think I lost 33% of my fund's capital. All my own personal money was in that fund. And so it was devastating. And but it prepared me for 2008. I always tell people 1998 prepared me and probably saved Skybridge from going out of business because I was well prepared in 1998. And of course, I got hit pretty hard last year, but last year to me was more volatility than anything else. So I held the assets. The assets went down in value. The assets are now back through where they were when they started going down in value. And so people that were just patient got rewarded. So it's different. I haven't operated with any leverage. I've been very, very patient. Like you, I'm a believer in the blockchain, but I also recognize it's still early adopting. And I just want to frame this for your listeners and viewers for a moment. If you read in the paper that Kitty Hawk, they created Flight, and it was 1903, and the Wright brothers created Flight, and it was 14 years later, that's the duration of Bitcoin, about to be 15.
Right.
If you said 14 years later in 2017, how many naysayers were there in 2017 about commercial aviation and the adoption of this technology known as flight, where people would actually board commercial airplanes and fly themselves around the world? In 1917, 14 years after the origination of flight, many skeptics said it would never happen. And so I just want to remind people that there are technological adoption curves for products, and Bitcoin is just scratching the surface. We are, with Bitcoin, about where the browser was in 1998. We have about a 4% saturation for Bitcoin. And, you know, I just want to frame this for you. $88 trillion in retail investing, less than 1% of that is in alternatives, hedge funds, private equity, esoterica like Bitcoin. So just imagine if we get a Bitcoin ETF approved in the United States, and you and I have been around Wall Street a very, very long time. Wall Street pushes product. You know, products on Wall Street are sold, they're not bought.
Yeah, I think that's very, very important.
I just want you to imagine the unleashing.
Say that again, though, Anthony, that products are sold, they're not bought by Joe Consumer. Can you discuss that? Because I was on a conference with about 4,000 people, and they were talking about, well, my 88-year-old mom's never going to buy this. And I'm like, no, your 88-year-old mom's going to be sold this. Right. They package this up. Talk about that a little bit, because that's a big deal.
So when I got to Wall Street, my old boss, who's 89 years old now, a terrific guy, he said that we feed the ducks. If the ducks are quacking and they want bread, we feed them bread. If they want something else, we feed it. You know, he holds these analogies. If you're going into a man's house and he wants white shirts, bring white shirts. If he wants blue shirts, bring blue shirts. His point was, we make product on Wall Street and then we sell it, but then we're looking for who has demand and who doesn't. But in the case of something like Bitcoin, I envision a scenario where asset managers around the world, they put it in their global tactical asset allocation strategy. So Gary Cardone walks in, he's a super wealthy guy, and they say, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you some bonds, some stocks, some private equity, some real estate. Oh, by the way, we're going to give you some digital property, and we're going to start you, Gary, with a 1% allocation to Bitcoin. And in the context of all of that, you're buying that asset allocation from that vendor. And so that's what I mean, that the products are sold and not bought. You know, it's not necessarily the buying decision by the end user as much as it is, it's on the shelf. I got to make my quota. I'm going to push this product off the shelf. And that happens on Wall Street, whether people like that or not, they want to be cynical about it or not. That happens on Wall Street. A firm like BlackRock, the largest asset manager in the world, is not going to put an ETF of Bitcoin, a cash ETF in place without massively selling it to its customers. You know, and so just think about this. If you have a $2 trillion global capital asset allocation portfolio at BlackRock, and they just decide to put 1% of that, okay, think of the magnitude of what we're talking about, you know? And so, you know, be 20, 30, 40 billion dollars into Bitcoin. And you know, as a trader, it's the incremental demand that moves price.
That's right.
And we don't have a lot of supply of Bitcoin. You know, you look at the on-chain dynamics. People are warehousing and not selling their Bitcoin, which is why you've seen these dramatic price moves recently.
Yeah, I'd like to get to that. It's a big issue for me. My greatest concern over Bitcoin is not storage, it's not security, it's liquidity. But I don't want to get there yet. I'd like to just back up for the audience. about, before we go into the deep Bitcoin hole, we'll get there. Skybridge. What is Skybridge? What is its purpose? Like, what are you building over there? In really basic terms, okay, most of these guys haven't spent 20 years on Wall Street like you and I have. Just basically, who's your client? What are you trying to achieve? How big is that business? And what do you want it to become?
So we have about $3.5 billion under management now, but we got tattooed last year. We lost about 39% of our capital. So we were a $5.5 billion business. We're recovering very strongly this year. Our business is broken up into three categories. We have a hedge fund of funds. We have a cryptocurrency or digital property asset allocation piece to our business. There's we have a diversified coin fund. We have a Bitcoin fund. We have an Ethereum fund. Those will eventually be swapped into, hopefully, ETFs once these things get approved. And we have a private equity fund that we make investments in. So we've made investments in things like Klarna and Chime and Kraken, the cryptocurrency broker. And we're typically looking for late stage pre-IPO. Now, the IPO market has shut down. I was at an event yesterday where it was sort of crazy, but the guy put up a chart. He said there's about 25 years of backlog of companies that would have liked to have gone public, but in the last 2 years, there's been no window of opportunity or no demand for IPOs because of what's going on in the interest rate cycle and the environment and what's going on in the stock market. So a lot of those companies are either going to get merged out of business, profitably, but, there'll be M&A activity, or 2-3 years from now, the public markets will eventually open and we'll have some type of IPOs on some of these businesses. So those are my three businesses that are related to asset management. My fourth business, which I think you know about, is SALT, which is a thought leadership conference. We've been doing that conference for the last 14 years, and it's been incredibly successful. And we've had a whole host of different speakers and politicians and economists, hedge fund managers, Hollywood types.
Is that a kind of invite only? Or is it, because it sounds like
it's invite only, but I'm pretty lenient. As long as it's somebody that's, we do screen because we don't want ambulance chasing. If I'm bringing billionaire hedge fund managers to speak at an event, I don't want them attacked in the bathroom. Yeah. But, we put up a registration and people can file with us who they are, and then we get a look at who they are, and then we typically accept them. But and I have to have a lot of security at these places because I've had Joe Biden, President Biden. I've had President Bush, President Clinton, Governor Mitt Romney, Senator Romney, Gordon Brown. I had the late, great Colin Powell one year. And so this coming year, I'm going to have Secretary Esper, General Milley, who just retired as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He's going to come to our event this year.
Where is it? Where is the event?
It's going to be at the Glass House. It's going to be May 16th to the 18th. At the Glass House. Let me know, of course, if you want to come.
Yeah, count me in. I haven't been to it, and I've heard great things about it. I would like to come. So
okay, good. Well, we'll get you an invite. That's easy enough. But the point being is, those businesses are diversified. I have longstanding clients, and I think we have I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'll just say it. I think we have a really big asymmetric opportunity ahead of us with Bitcoin. I'm not saying it's not going to be volatile. I'm not saying it's not going to have spins and turns and some roller coaster cycling. But if we're right and the ETF is adopted, and it won't just be BlackRock, it'll be Fidelity and ARK Asset Management and Volcry and Franklin Templeton, and I could list all the people that have filed. The Grayscale Bitcoin Trust is going to be converted. That's going to create incremental demand. And there's no reason why a product like this, which is loved by a generation of people younger than you and me, who like this as a store of value way more than gold. Gold is, you tell me, $12 trillion asset. Bitcoin is a $670 billion asset at today's market prices. How is it possible that Bitcoin over the next 10 years, as it gets more adoption, there's exponential growth in adoption, how do we not get that to 6, 8? So that's a 10x from here. And it would still be below, if gold was static, it would still be below the market capitalization of gold. So, there's no reason why this can't be a 300. When somebody says, oh, I predicted a $330,000 Bitcoin, I'm smoking crack. But it's not based on a vacuum or me throwing a dart in the middle of the universe. It's based on an analysis of the demand that's out there for the product, the value proposition of the product, the immutability of the product, the ease of use of the product as it's transcending the technology. And you get to those numbers because those numbers are still below the market cap of gold. And I just want to say this one thing, if you have one more moment, because I want you to imagine this, because we're both getting up there now. It's 1998.
Shit, I'm not getting up there, buddy. I'm getting better. Okay,
you're getting better, but
I'm getting better. So are you.
The fact that I remember 1998 so vividly is a sign of it. But here's what I would say to you. It's 1998. Of course, we can't have this conversation because we don't have the technology, but I'm sitting there with my fat box computer and a dial-up modem. And I have something called the internet, and I can get on the Netscape browser or the AOL browser. I can buy a book from Amazon, maybe a Pez gun from eBay, and it's very clunky, and you can hear the burring and the whirring of the modem. And what if I came in from 2023 and I said, hey, Gary, see this like clunky technology that you're using right now? Well, in 25 years, there's going to be massive exponential transformation, and you'll be talking like George Jetson to your buddy Anthony Scaramucci on a podcast, and you'll be streaming 4K video on your phone, your TV, or wherever the hell you're going, your tablet. Okay, there'll be trillions of dollars of transactions done over the internet seamlessly. And these phone calls that we're worried about, these long distance phone calls where we're getting charged excessive per minute charges, are going to zero because you're going to be on a data plan. It's going to be voice over IP. And you'd be like, oh, wow. And I'm just trying to explain to you, I can't predict the future, but you and I can observe the past. And we can say, okay, well, that was an exponential change in the society from 25 years ago. Adoption of social media, adoption of B2C commerce, C2C commerce, B2B commerce. And that's going to happen with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is going to be ubiquitous, and it's going to be very easy to use. And there'll be a digital dollar for sure, but there will also be this immutable, easy to transfer store of value.
I think what you're talking about is, and you don't have to be a genius on the future. All you have to do is study the past. Everyone underestimates the effort and the time it takes for technology to really bite. And when it bites, they grossly underestimate how much it bites. It becomes almost, I see Bitcoin as mercury that's just going to sink to the lowest gravity point where the most margin is. It's going to attack it. Like it's just going to gravitate toward the biggest margins. I think people that were looking at AI, people forget AI has been around 52 years and it's just making its debut, right? I mean, that was a long time. Took Visa and MasterCard 52 years to get cards in everybody's pocket. The Bitcoin Maximal guys, I mean, I love everybody. Everybody's got a point of view, but they have grossly underestimated how long it takes for this plumbing to get situated. And I'm beginning to see flows that are now unstoppable because the truth is we have all been too early. See, I'm going to raise my hand and go, hey, I made a mistake, man. I got in too early. However, if I was getting in right now for the first time, I still have 3 years of study and work and connections to make. So the work that I did in the last 4 years, I mean, I know everybody now in this space, right? So I'm more prepared at 27 to 35,000 to really turn this into I mean, like you, I have devoted a tremendous amount of my children's future into Bitcoin. And then I'm so crazy, love the space so much, I start buying companies. I see this as a once in a century event. I've never seen any opportunity like this. Everyone's trying to rush it up, and I'm actually, hey, it's okay that it's taking a long time. Like, this is good because you can get your ducks in a row. Do you agree with that? Or like, I'm not in a big rush.
I agree with it. But what I love about you is your conviction in this is grounded in years of life experience in financial services and financial assets. So you're looking at it for what it is. It's a piece of software that's going to allow us to transact with each other without a third party. So just stop for 1 second. Viewers and listeners, think of the magnitude of that. If I own a restaurant, Gary walks in, he wants to pay the bill. He doesn't use MasterCard or Visa. He pays the waiter with a wallet-to-wallet transfer that increases the gross margin in the restaurant by 22.5%. Now there's more money for the salaries. There's more money for food quality. There's more money for expansion. I had, sitting in this office here during the UN General Assembly meetings, El Salvadorian economic officials had come to see me to talk about the wallet-to-wallet transfer development going on in El Salvador. And the one gentleman said to me, yeah, there's 15 or so million expats that live in the United States from El Salvador. They want to send money back to mom and dad in our country. They get ripped off. They're typically unbanked, Gary. They go to MoneyGram or Western Union with $10, $100 bills. Western Union gets a $100 bill, and mom and dad gets $900. They get charged 10%.
Yeah,
slammed, Gary. They get slammed. But imagine this piece of software, a wallet-to-wallet transfer without the third party, would save the El Salvadoran population $400 million a year. Okay. And that could go into housing and food and the economy and the perpetual prosperity, positive flywheel of economic growth. And when you stop and you think about what I just said, and you take it across every restaurant in the world, and you take it across every person in the world that needs to do a transaction, where now you're not going to get that slippage of fees clipping you. Because ultimately, what is MasterCard or Visa or American Express doing? They're allowing you to walk into that restaurant and have your credit be validated by a third party. Okay, MasterCard or Visa is going to support that purchase. But what if you could just do it wallet to wallet seamlessly? It's and when you tell people,
when do you think we get there? Because I think the problem is, I've been doing this since I was 26 years old. Refarming and transforming the way nat gas literally is commercialized in 4 countries. If you can do that to power and nat gas, what is a credit card transaction? I mean, I actually have a bit of a hard on for the card schemes. One, they're called card schemes. 2, 51% net operating margin, Visa. 51% net operating margin. MasterCard's got a 46% net operating. You cannot show me one company on the planet that is 40-year-old that has a monopoly that makes that kind of margin. ExxonMobil makes a 10% net operating margin. If they were making a 51% net they'd be in prison, man. Okay, we would have strikes in the streets, but the credit card guys can have their duopoly because, somebody calls, State Department calls Visa and says, turn off the Russians. Okay, that's how they make that kind of margin. And together they have 72% of the market. Okay, who's that costing? Joe Consumer. And it's not me and you, Joe Consumer. It's your mom who doesn't have any money. It's really abominable what I see happening. This does not happen in China, man. They don't make those kind of margins in China, right? And Visa and MasterCard haven't touched China. They have not made any headway into that market whatsoever. To me, that's what we attack, right? the Bitcoin's going to attack. I think the canary in the coal mine is going to be the gaming companies, the gambling companies, and the adult companies who get all these onerous, horrific fees, chargebacks, fees for refunds, right? Because they 350 times its average of a food seller or a restaurant. Visa makes 8% on a pornography guy, and they call that brand risk. It's like, what do you mean brand risk? It's either a legal transaction or it is not a legal transaction. Bitcoin's going to fill up, or some digital surrogate of Bitcoin, I think, takes over those microtransactions because there won't be any refunds. There won't be any chargebacks. And once that's lost, the entire payment rails, I mean, the world pays the world, their margins will get crushed, right? Because that's where they make their real juice. It's a flawed system, okay? You literally have one merchant. The consumer's identical, right? So if the consumer's buying something legally, he does not understand the difference between pornography and an airline ticket or a charge from Zoom for the $20 a month fee, right? They're just transactions.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing that's happening, and I think you probably see this, is that you get hit, the consumer, with the service fee now. So if I go to buy something and say, oh, you're going to use your credit card, that's great. We're going to charge you an extra 3.5%. They're trying to avoid absorbing that on their end. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, and they don't really charge it overtly. What they do is they charge it to the merchant, and then the merchant embeds it. I think you're going to start to see merchants say, hey, like I'm trying to sell a $14 million house right now. I will give you $450,000 if you trade with me in crypto, right? Somebody's going to make $900,000 in fees.
That's pretty cool.
For doing fucking nothing, right? Really.
Right.
But why wouldn't I advertise that? I mean, all these NFT guys, I keep saying, yeah, I've got a trophy house. Let's NFT this thing, right? I'll do it at a discount to bypass the agency fees. So it didn't mean to get off on that track, but I just think this is going to happen first with the wealthy. It's not going to happen from the underbanked and the consumer. It first has to happen with all the family offices have to get pregnant. All the pensions have to put 1, 2, 3, 4% into Bitcoin. It becomes a common investment strategy. We have now Gensler, we have Fink, everybody's saying this is an asset class. That is a monster change from where we were the last 12 years. It's never been called an asset class. Once that happens, everybody's going to take a percentage of it. It's been blessed. We have tax documents, treasury documents out now. We have FASB rules changed. How many more green lights do we need, man, before we start our engines? Right? Well, I don't feel like it's early anymore.
Yeah, I understand that, but you do have something that didn't happen in prior generations, and that is the baby boomers aren't leaving. So and the ones that are older than the baby boomers, Chuck Grassley, who I think is like George Washington's great grandfather, he's the senator from Iowa. He ain't leaving, man. Nancy Pelosi, 83, running for re-election. Joe Biden going to be 80. Running for re-election. 82 when he gets to the next term of the presidency. If he makes it, 78-year-old Donald Trump, these guys are not leaving the field. They do not want off the field, and they're antiquated. They don't understand the situation.
Well, Brady stayed on the field. He stayed. They always stayed a year too long, man.
Yeah, they do, but this is decades now. I mean, Brady stayed a year or two too long, but he was in pretty good shape, and he won a Super Bowl, 2 years prior. You know what I mean? So it's not like he was like that close to being over the hill. But, these people don't know what they're doing. You got Elizabeth Warren. I mean, she's literally the antichrist of crypto, right? I mean, this woman doesn't understand it, doesn't want to understand it. She's got a vibe that it polls well. If she says she has a people out there to bash crypto, an army of anti-crypto people, and she's raising money off of that. In the meantime, she's putting a crimp on U.S. financial services innovation, and she's causing a capital flight out of the United States.
Anthony,
this thing should have been approved 2 years ago,
Look, I actually think that FTX wouldn't have been the problem if the ETF would have been here. You had so much, I think there's so much money trying to get into this space that it went through the way of venture and PE because it had no access to the spot market. Right? That makes sense to me. I do not believe all that. I think that money would have flowed into the ETF. It wouldn't have gone the way of, hey, I'm going to go invest. You probably wouldn't have done it. You'd probably been like, man, I can buy Bitcoin on the spot market.
Yeah, it's an interesting theory. You know, I remember I let him invest in my business. You know, that's something I have to own for the rest of my life. I liked him.
Yeah, but how would you know, dude? How would you have known?
I know well, you know, I get lit up on Twitter now. I had some woman tell me that she knew, but I'm like, you told me you had an account with him. So if you knew, how could you have had an account with him? Well, I knew he was a fraud, but you had an account with him. Yeah. You know, we revise history to make ourselves look better, you know, from our filtration of the prism into the past. You know, when I got divorced, my divorce attorney said, just remember, everybody remembers things the way they need to, Gary, not the way they actually happened. You know, right. And I was like, wow, he's 100% right. I got to try to remember the things the way they happen, not the way I need to, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Let's move to the ETF because I think that's what's really, really important. I know that you had, it's public, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you've got, you're going to have a position on the BlackRock ETF. I don't know how.
Yeah, no, it is public now. We got permission from BlackRock to file. We are,
why do they need
we were the first
like you in that?
It's good. Well, they had to, okay. So this got incubated by a team of digital asset experts in BlackRock and, mandated from Larry Fink was, okay, I'm not going into the Bitcoin market unless you can prove to me that there is seismic and seminal demand for Bitcoin from institutional investors. And so they went out and they said, okay, we got to set this up, but we need an immediate outside/institutional investor. You're friends of ours, and you were 3 years earlier than us, and it would really help me to get the snowball rolling if you would be the first money in. Now, you and I are both Italian, so, we know pizzeria owners. I don't know if you remember when we were kids, you had to put the first dollar on the pizza oven. So we were the first $10 million on the pizza oven of the BlackRock Bitcoin Trust, which is going to be converted into the ETF. And so I'm proud of that because
did they need that for new? Oh, you should be proud of that, man.
I want to help those guys. And by the way, they're helping, they're helping us. They're helping get the industry adopted. You know what I mean?
Of course. How many other people besides you are sitting there? Do you know?
I don't know now. I know they've raised more money away from us. I know we're not the only investor now, but we were the first investor.
Got it. So walk me through, I know you can't make any predictions or anything. You think this is 98% done, or we still got a lot of wood to chop here?
Well,
I know that you're not speaking.
I don't know, but I'm going to tell you that Novogratz is very close to me. Really felt it was going to happen in October. We're in the last couple of days of October, as you pointed out. I think the BlackRock guys think it's going to happen in December. But I think that the latest it can really happen is January 10th because the SEC has delayed ARC, but they can't delay it any longer than January 10th. And so they have to make a decision. If they reject the ARC, Cathie Wood ARC Asset Management cash ETF, they've now set up a whole hornet's nest of problems for themselves because they lost a federal court case. And remember, last Friday, they had a deadline expire where they had the opportunity to appeal that court case, and the SEC made a decision not to appeal it. Why did they make a decision not to appeal it, Gary? They thought they were going to lose the appeal. Yeah. So I don't know how they don't approve an ETF between now and January 10th. Now, you say 98%. I believe it is. Now, Gary's a sinister guy. He is basically a puppet of Elizabeth Warren.
Paid for.
Yep, Elizabeth Warren is his puppet master, And so could he do something, some type of scheme or some type of technical rejection to keep this going a little while longer? Sure, he could. And, if that happens, the price will drop 15%, but it's not going to prevent us from eventually getting it. It's a matter of, when, not if at this point.
I think the U.S. is in a very peculiar situation regarding blockchain and Bitcoin. We're only 12%. We have to get out of our narcissistic viewpoint that 350 million people control this planet. This product has nothing to do with America. Okay, nothing. Like 12, 14% of the total demand. I actually think it might go down 15%, but I think it would just come right back because I don't think we care, man. I'm just going to go place the order. Remember 6 months ago, they said they're just going to get rid of all crypto. Now, I don't invest in the other tokens. But I'm like, dude, I'll just pick up the phone to Goldman Sachs and call for the London office. Canary Wharf will eat this up like cheese and candy. Okay. I mean, they sell half their advertising is on gambling, right? So like Dubai will pick this up all day long and serve those crazy Asian gamblers.
100%.
I don't even understand the point of it. We're trying to create problems. I think we're trying to destroy our country. Because this is a multi-trillion-dollar industry that we could be leading, and it's not just about Bitcoin.
So you don't need to hear all my geopolitical BS, but I just want you to think about this. You got to a moment in time where the British Empire was so powerful that money no longer mattered, and so the focus was on bloodlines. Okay, and it became an aristocracy. So the money wasn't important enough anymore. Who were you a descendant from and what area of the country were you from? That was going to guide status. In our country, we got very, very prosperous and we flipped the switch over away from the blocking and tackling and the fundamentals in the country to virtue signaling. So we now have to have a cause that is pro-Hamas in the country for some reason. So what does that mean? Like, they can cross the border into Israel and massacre people. And then we lie to people and say, well, the Israelis are occupiers. What are you guys talking about? You've had 3 or 4 different agreements set up over the years where you could peacefully cohabitate with each other. But for political reasons, you've decided not to do that, right? Or now in this city, this beautiful city that I live in, one of the most amazing places in the history of civilization, you can rob the pharmacies here, get it up to $950,
yep.
No problem. Bobby Kennedy is sending out a tweet today. Somebody tried to break into my house last night. We called the cops. They were arrested. There's no bail. And so they let him right out of the jail. And where is he? He's back at my house.
Yeah.
So what are you guys doing? I mean, what are you doing? So we've now lost the plot. The British lost the plot. And they flipped it over to bloodlines and royalty and aristocracy, away from meritocracy. We've lost the plot, and we're going in a direction, well, I have to prove to you that I'm woke, and I'm virtue signaling to you how pure I am and how I don't care.
It's a good way not to do business with me, man.
Well, yeah. Well, but a lot of people. So now you have this big divide. I have people. Yeah, I have people that are hard right now that were actually moderates because they're like, hey, man, I can't have this nonsense. I can't teach my kids this morally relativistic gobbledygook. Yeah. So what are you talking about? Well, we're going to let them steal?
Well, my children have lost all respect for adults.
Yeah, but I'm saying Kamala Harris objectively sucks as the vice president. She objectively sucks, but she's a black woman, so you cannot say that. Okay. But Franklin Roosevelt went through 3 vice presidents. He fired Henry Wallace and he hired Harry Truman. And then he died and Truman became the president. So the point that I'm making is we used to live in a meritocracy. I'm not saying it wasn't some racism. Of course, there was. We had slavery in the country, definitionally.
How many times were you called WAP or Dago when you were growing up?
I still am, actually. And I'm
did you ever complain
when
about
I was
that?
in the White House, we had guys telling me I was Jim Tan Laundry, Jersey Shore cast member, Tony Soprano on the Potomac.
I have been so, I don't see any more racism than when I was growing up. In fact, I would say that we don't have a lot of racism. I've lived in other countries. You want to talk about racism? Go to England and just observe how few Black people are doing anything, or women, and they don't talk about it, dude. You can't talk about it in England.
I'm with you, but here's what I would say, right? Kamala Harris sucks as the vice president.
Yeah, no doubt.
Condoleezza Rice was great as the Secretary of State. They're both Black women. I'm not evaluating them on their skin color or their genitalia. I'm evaluating them on their job performance. And so, but we can't do that anymore. We're not allowed to do that. I'm sure someone will pick up your podcast and say, "Oh, I'm a racist because I said Kamala Harris sucks as a vice president." I'm not a racist to say that. I'm objectively looking at the way she's handled the vice presidency.
But I think all of this, though, really leads you back to Bitcoin, right? This is my hedge, okay, across the insanity. What I see no leadership in my country. I see strong leadership in other countries that have more to lose than we do or more to gain than we have. Mm-hmm. And I'll just call it out. I think Putin's actually done a good job for his citizens. He's at least holding his line, saying, "Hey, look, you can't keep sticking nukes and spies right next to my border." It'd be similar to what we're doing in Cuba. I think for me, it gives me, BTC gives me a window of optionality in case we just go crazy, like nutcase crazy. I want to get back to the ETF, though, because there's nothing I can do about politics unless I'm willing to go into it. Let's talk about the seeding. I don't know how much you know about the seeding. I don't want to put you in a bind if you don't, but I don't know very many people that explain to me how this ETF gets seeded. Does it get bought from a large player or does it get bought in the market?
Yeah. So this is called a create. I can explain it to you.
It's called the create?
It's called the create. So here's what happens.
This is the kind of stuff that's great for the audience, right?
Yeah,
really
so let me explain it to you. Yeah. Gary wants to buy the ETF. He files to purchase the CUSIP number. The person that is running the ETF now has to go into the marketplace and create ETF for Gary. Okay. And so the person does is they go into the marketplace and they buy Bitcoin and they put it in the ETF.
In this case, it would be BlackRock.
In this case, it would be BlackRock. And so if you bought the Skybridge, our symbol is CRYPT, CRPT. There's 30 stocks in that.
CRPT.
PT. So it's CRYPT, CRPT. And it's the Skybridge Digital Innovation Fund. Okay. It's owned by us and First Trust. And it's a, crypto, we call it's a long, but it's First Trust Skybridge Crypto Industry and Digital Economy ETF. So you go to buy that today, you give me $1 million, we then go into the marketplace and we buy pro-rationally that amount proportionately of what $1 million represents in that portfolio. And then we stick it in the Depository Trust Corporation under that CUSIP number. And then we put those shares into your fund. Now, when you want to sell it, you go to sell it. It comes back through them into us. We give you the price that you sold it at, and we sell those shares. That's called an unwind. So you have a create and an unwind, depending on the assets that are going in and out of the ETF. And that's done through the great software that we have today. This is stuff that you and I could not have done in 1987 when we joined the business.
So liquidity and the seeding, right? I've been trading markets my whole life. And in fact, I've been in control. You know that the truth is there's a very small number of people that really control markets, right? There's always those 4 or 5 guys that are really they're the experts, and mine happened to be nat gas. I showed up in England, the markets opened up, right? I know people don't really understand that's what really happens, but there's always that guy he's the man, right? He sets the market off. With the seeding, clearly that's going to put someone in a really good position. But for me, sitting on the sidelines as an investor of BTC, and I tend to buy a lot often, all through the period, because I'm not doing it for a 2-year window, right? I'm doing it to give my kids. When do I get worried about, or when will I be able to see on the blockchain that the seeding has occurred? I mean, how much would a BlackRock have to buy? Because you don't know what the demand is today, right? I'm worrying about somebody wants to buy 1 million units of this stuff. This market's going to freak out, man.
Well, okay, but remember something. So let me just see if I can explain this to you.
Can I just add one other piece?
Yeah, go ahead.
Especially when most people don't ever sell the product. There's no liquidity. It's the most liquid asset in the world, but there's no liquidity, man.
Well, that's the point.
Not at today's price.
So let's say you have 1 million Bitcoin
I think that's what they need to buy, dude. Yeah. I think at least $1 million, right?
So,
I mean, 1 million units.
Yeah. So let's say that there's 1 million Bitcoin to buy. They have to go into the marketplace to buy the Bitcoin. It's going to push it up. But here's the thing. You're going to buy the ETF. You may have a market price. I'm going to buy the ETF at 31,000. I'm going to buy the ETF at 33. Here's an at the market price for the ETF. Or I want the VWAP price, the weighted average price for the day.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? And it's a liquid enough market where people will provide that for you.
You think so, huh?
I do. I do. It's going to push the price up.
Just Monday.
So this will be a $50,000 coin if that thing gets accepted for those reasons.
Oh, I agree, man. I mean, what makes me nervous, though, Anthony, is that last Monday, 2 Mondays ago, we have the fake news thing rocks $2,500, goes from 28 to 31 or so. It pulls back, and then before any news, it goes back above that fake level, which was like, that was one of the coolest indicators I've ever seen. Didn't cost me a dime.
Just letting people know that we're in there, Gary.
Oh my God. So, and then the second thing is, though, that it went up 15.6% in one day, like this past Monday. And I'm seeing stuff on Twitter talking about gamma squeezes and bankruptcies. That scares me, man.
Right.
It's not even funny. It's like, whoa, this is your first day, dude.
We both have been there, man. We both have been there. I got a hobby because I got somebody waiting for me at this.
Yeah. Okay. So apologies. So
that's okay.
Where do you think the ETF gets approved sometime in January?
Between now and January 10th. But the BlackRock people I spoke to believe it's the first or second week of December.
1 year from now.
Yep.
Okay. Where are we going to be at, you think? You think that right now Bitcoin's a $600 billion industry?
It's going to be at least 1.2 trillion. So I think a year from now, it's 70,000.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm putting 57,000. My number's 57,000 for the year.
Well, I mean, let me tell you, look at the upside opportunity for all of us. So we got to just stay patient, man.
I think you're actually being conservative just because it's been a long ride.
That. People yell at me when I tell. I'd say it's going to be 300,000. People yell at me. I'm a dummy and blah blah. Yeah. Here, I got something for you. I'm sending you one of these. Can you see this? So this is the cover of the New York Post.
That's awesome.
That's me sinking in a boat, the SS Mooch. So the New York Post said that I'm a dummy. I own Bitcoin and I'm going to sink with the Bitcoin. So I had T-shirts made once it broke through the 30,000 level.
Please send me one.
So I got one of these for you. Just text me your address. I'm going to pop it in the mail.
Will do, man. Hey, thank you so much. Okay. Have a great weekend.
All right. God bless, man.
Ciao.